Hi, welcome to Get Used to It. I'm Sheila Kuehl, your hostess. And today I've got a great show for you. There have been a number of gay and lesbian film festivals around the country over the past several years. And we see more and more and more and more films and products being entered in these festivals. And the differentiation among the product and the people who are participating just made me want to talk to three really smart and interesting people about what's happening in our community, about film, about culture in the larger sense, about how it's changed or hasn't changed. Well, you'll see and judge for yourself. Today I'm very happy to welcome to Get Used to It Nancy Rosenblum, who is a movie critic, appropriately enough, given our subject matter, but also a 10-time Emmy-winning editor, also a writer and producer, films, video, radio, has a radio show. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi, glad to be here. So very excited.
A quintuple threat or whatever.
I bite ears.
Yes. Happy also to welcome Shari Frilot, who is a filmmaker and also a programmer for the Sundance Film Festival and for Outfest, which is the LA Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. Welcome, Shari.
Thanks, it's really great to be here.
Thank you. Well, I hope so. I certainly am pleased to have you here. And our third guest is Michael Kearns, who is, by my description, a one-man cultural revolution, performer, actor, writer, director, and dad.
Dad.
He asked me to add that. He has an 8-year-old daughter of whom he's inordinately proud, or maybe ordinately. Nancy, let's start with you if you don't mind. I think I've known you the longest, so we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, you spent most of your adult life making film or video or photography. So say a little about kind of how you got into that, and more importantly, what is it that appeals to you about doing that as opposed to something else?
I love it. It is my heart and soul. How far back do you want me to go?
Oh, not too far back. It's only an hour show.
Okay. I've always shot pictures. I've always loved images, went to Cal Arts as a photo major, got into video there, but have always watched movies and loved movies. And there's nothing else I want to do. I love going to the movies. I always go with delight and hope to be delighted.
Well, that's an interesting thing for a movie critic. Usually you see the other thing. But I remember years ago you were making a collection of photographs of lesbians. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to do that? I mean, I know photography was what your art at the time. Mm-hmm.
Because I love lesbians.
Yes, well.
And I wanted images of strong women, not necessarily strong here and strong here, mm-hmm. to be out and for everybody to see them, for popular culture to enjoy them, for it's kind of come out wherever you are. And with the photographs, I said what people did, said their ages. Some people had children, some people didn't have children. Do you know what I mean? Cross-cultural, mm-hmm. and there we are. And it was just, again, exciting. You know, the people that make up my life, or that I meet, or that I think are wondrous.
But then you wanted to start doing moving images, because I remember when mm-hmm. you were at Cal Arts doing uh-huh. video.
I started, actually, I did a show there called Vegetables, a Reaction to Male Violence Against Women, and it was a series of 4 different shots of vegetables being in various stages of mutilation, mm-hmm. like a carrot gets chopped up, mm-hmm. Asparagus through a meat grinder, and in stages. And then I had information there about self-defense, and so it didn't just like, wow, right. You know. And because I also started at 8 years old using my dad's Bell and Howell, moving images was like a natural progression. And so, I don't know, I just moved into the video department and started experimenting with that and got into editing. And, you know, at school, you know, you do everything. So I shot and did all that, and I really loved putting the pictures together and the sound and all of that.
But you're also a critic now, mm-hmm. and so I guess it's sort of in the theme of what I want us to talk about today. Mm-hmm. As you've seen over the years, even if it's just the last 10 or 15, the emergence of more and more and more, it seems to me, film by and about lesbian, gay, transgender, questioning, undefined, whatever. How do you think it's changed from sort of our early days of film, if it has? Are the themes different? Do we look better? You know, whatever.
I think the themes have changed, and we always look good. But I think a couple of things have happened. I think we've developed our skills as storytellers and our craft as filmmakers. And so that enhances people's viewing pleasure. And I think also as the gay, lesbian, transgender movement has grown, and it's, you know, a lot of us have already come out, we're successful at our jobs, we're looking to get married and have families. I think the movies reflect that now as well. So, and cross, you know, internationally, the gay and lesbian films that are coming out, I mean, domestically, everything.
So why is it important for us to, two things, I guess, to make our own films and to show them in places like festivals? I mean, it seems as though it's very insular in a way.
Actually, no. I mean, first of all, and you know, Shari will probably definitely speak to this, but I think there are so many films that are gay and lesbian, transgender themed that will never see the light of day if it weren't for festivals. They're not going to get distribution for whatever reasons, and they could be like, you know, the next cabaret, and for some, you know, whatever reasons not get distribution. So it's a chance to see them, it's a chance to meet our peers, it's a chance to go into the lobby and go, wow, look at all these lesbians. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think it's really important to have our lives. I mean, even if I go to a lesbian themed movie and it's not my experience, there are parts of it that ring true to my experience. And it's so validating. And it's so validating, for example, just to take my mother to go see Who's Kissing Jessica Stein, and we can like talk about it, and you know, or a more radical movie, but it's, you know, it's important.
Is it more important now or less important than it's been? Because it seems like in the early days we couldn't find anything about ourselves, and we had to go, you know, to people's garages and they were showing them, you know, on sheets. I exaggerate only a little.
Right, but we live in a big metropolitan area, and someone that lives in Ohio, you know, they're lucky to, do you know what I mean? It's just as important, you know, it's just as important. And I mean, I think, you know, I think it will always be important to have our images out there and become as much mixed with popular culture as we can.
You also interview people on your radio show. Are they mostly filmmakers or other kind of artists?
Everybody, writers, filmmakers. I interviewed Ruthie and Connie.
Oh yeah, tell us about them a little bit.
There
was a film about them in the Outfest,
and it's called Ruthie and Connie, Every Room in the House, and it's a documentary about their lives. Now these women met in the 50s in Brooklyn. They were raising their children together in a building called Contello Towers. They built a synagogue. They were community activists. Well, lo and behold, they fell in love with each other, and they came out kind of in the 70s, but they weren't aware of any other lesbian movement. They weren't aware of Stonewall. They weren't, and divorced their husbands. You know, their kids were estranged from them, and they're activists now. They're 65 and 68, and they lead PFLAG workshops and coming out. Their kind of mission, it seems, is coming out at whatever cost.
But they didn't make this film, right? This film was made about them.
Right. It's a documentary about them.
So
right.
I guess, I mean, to state the obvious, there's a lot of people we wouldn't know but for these films.
Right.
And I guess a lot of other stuff. Shari, when your title is programmer for Sundance and for Outfest and other festivals, what does that mean exactly?
Well, what that means is that I watch a whole lot of films, go to a whole lot of film festivals, and I select films for the festival slate.
So do you work not just exclusively with gay and lesbian films, or is that the major area of your programming?
Well, for Sundance, I look at pretty much every American film that's been made independently, and then some studio films. So that's pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
For Outfest, you know, I watch a lot of gay and lesbian films, but I also watch a lot of experimental films made by gay filmmakers. The content's not necessarily gay. I watch films by straight filmmakers that I feel have something to offer a gay and lesbian audience. So it cuts across the board.
So why is it important that we have such a festival?
Outfest?
Outfest or other festivals across the country, like Outfest?
Well, you know, festivals are really important because these are where the new talent comes through. These are the platforms that new filmmakers trying new things get to show their work to an audience for the first time, and connect with the audience for the first time, and then maybe find some distribution, maybe not, but complete the filmmaking process, which is to connect with an audience for the first time. You know, festivals have a totally different agenda than distribution companies. You know, we're interested in seeing new voices, seeing new kinds of things on film, where distributors are interested in selling films, and that's like a totally different set of values that they're looking for. So you get to see a broader range of films at festivals than you would at your multiplex.
So have you seen a change over the past 10 or 15 years in terms of the kinds of film we're making in our community for ourselves or each other or about ourselves?
Yeah, well, there's been quite a change in the last 10, 15 years. It's been changing and changing and changing again. You know, there used to be, I guess 10 years ago, just an abundance of coming out stories, coming of age stories, and you know, this was really important at the time. A lot of those films were not, you couldn't catch them at your multiplex or even at your art house theater, and whereas now you can. In both sets of theaters. There's been, especially in the American scene, I think there's more now that distributors have sniffed out dollars in gay film. You know, there's a kind of a rush amongst filmmakers to make a commercially viable film. So we're starting to see a sway toward a more commercialized aesthetic. But then there's also another part of the filmmaking community that just continues to just make their own crazy experimental films, and you know, again, that's where festivals come in, because that's where you get to see those films.
Well, one of the aspects you programmed at this most recent Outfest in LA was what'd you call it, the platinum section?
Oh yeah, the platinum section. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, last year was my last year of co-directing Outfest, and one of the things that I started was a section dedicated to experimental film that's being made and that speaks to queer community, and we called it Platinum. It's a section of 5 programs, one including a multimedia performance installation called Platinum Oasis, where we take over the Coral Sands, which is kind of a historic institution here in Los Angeles.
A motel, is it not?
It is a motel, yes.
Right.
It's an 18-hour event, starts 4 in the afternoon on Saturday, goes overnight to Sunday. And we fill every 40 rooms with a multimedia performance artist. The stage goes on all night. And it's just fantastic, really, really intensely creative work that's been presented in this event. And then there's also shorts programs that we show in the Platinum section, and a few features from around the world, really.
So is there more exciting work going on in other countries, or are we kind of keeping up? I mean, some of the theme I think that we discussed has to do with the potential commercialization of our films, maybe more interest in you know, being shown, which is not a bad thing, obviously. Is it the same internationally? Because we tend to think of film as such an American thing, especially commercial film.
Well, there's a range of films being made internationally as well. You know, Come Undone was a movie that was picked up, French film that was picked up, and you can find it in your video stores. But there are also films like Lubov and Other Nightmares, which is, you know, way out there, probably won't see the light of day after the film festival circuit. Certainly there's more support internationally, especially in Europe, for films that buck commercial values, that have dark themes, that are formally rigorous, experimentally wise, you know. So you actually do probably see more of a range of films with a higher production value in general, just because there's more money. But you do see that range here in the United States. You just see some of the production value slipping a little bit in the lower budget realms.
Well, the United States is not a huge fan of art, generally. I mean, it isn't a thing that every child, we don't even have to study it in school anymore. Right. We don't have to do it. We don't necessarily have to learn about it. We don't have to study its history, whether it's filmic art or even, you know, digital art, it doesn't matter. We don't necessarily emphasize it. It's not a way that we value something. So, in a sense, it makes it even more difficult, I think, here. But is this kind of art, just film generally, for our community, has it helped with our movement and with people, you know, dealing with who they are?
You know, I'm really glad you said that about where art stands in our society, because it's a pretty hostile environment to be an artist in America. And it's a shame, because it is such an incredibly powerful tool for political movements and activism. You know, I've pretty much dedicated my life toward cultural activism through film and through different art forms, but primarily film. You know, there's something, it's one of our greatest accomplishments as human beings, that we can make art, and art has the power to transcend. And when you combine art with a political message, you are able to communicate and grow something that you just wouldn't be able to do in a newspaper or standing on a microphone, just reading from text. I mean, it's amazing.
Visceral. Well, it's visceral. I mean, you don't even know how it's getting.
Yes, it speaks to something that is beyond language. It speaks to your childhood. It speaks to what something smelled like 2 days ago. It's very powerful.
So is it just inherently political because we make a film about being gay?
Well, you know, I think everything's political. You know. Yes, I would say yes. I mean, you can make a movie about the chair that you're sitting in, and I think that would be in certain terms political, because, you know, that chair wouldn't be made in West Africa. It could be made here in America. So that's, you know, it depends on really the audience and how they consume it. You know, some audiences will be inclined to consume in a more political way than others. Certainly our culture in America, we've been raised to not really read things politically, but everything is political.
Well, Michael, you've devoted your life to this kind of culture, and sometimes seeming like a lone voice in the wilderness. I mean, not only because you've done these one-man shows, but just thematically. I mean, tell us about your newest show and some of what you've done.
Well, I'm working on several shows now, but I'm doing a show at the end of the year on AIDS again, with 9 different characters, 2 of whom are African American, an ostensibly heterosexual couple. And everyone, it's sort of inspired by La Ronde, where each person passes the virus on to the next person in the world of crystal meth, hustling, and also in a world of very, ostensibly very heterosexual straight life too. And I think that, you know, what I've heard from both of these brilliant women is that, you know, we need this voice. We were voiceless for so many years. We had no voice. And it's no accident that many gay men and lesbians have found their salvaged lives in the arts, because we had to find some place to define ourselves and to say, not only are we here, but we're here and we're all these different things. To suggest, and I know that you're being the devil's advocate on some level, but that it's insular, of course, would be as silly as suggesting that a heterosexual film festival is insular. There are so many types and lesbian stories that I've barely begun to, you know, and I think I'm open to a lot of them, yet I don't know every lesbian story. I certainly don't know all the stories of lesbians of color, of different countries, different cities in this country. The rich tapestries that these stories create is unbelievable. The same with gay men. I mean, I don't see myself reflected in Will and Grace. So, I mean, I need to go elsewhere. I can't turn on the television and particularly see my story accurately told. So I think that we need to, you know, we're thirsty and hungry to go to these film festivals and just be informed, moved, challenged, angered, turned off, turned on. Anything and do that to the rest of the world as well. I mean, that's what's beautiful and invigorating and shocking and disturbing about it. I'm certainly not suggesting I'd like everything that I saw, but boy, if it challenged me in some way, then we're doing something right. And I think we need it more than ever. And I also think that we're at a critical period of time where, and this is very true in the arts, where, you know, corporate America realizes that gay art equals money, and there's value in it financially. And that's a wonderful, great thing. We have worked years and years and years and years to get our footing and to get to the point of being taken that seriously as artists. Yet at the same time, we cannot compromise our stories, and we can't start curtailing or caving in to the dollar, because we know what happens there. I think every lesbian and gay artist deserves to make a lot of money. I'm not suggesting anything to the contrary, but we also have to have our events at the Coral Sands, which are edgy and might not make a lot of money, and we have to have those movies out there too. So it's a very exciting time, and I just am thrilled to talk about it. I can never talk about it enough, because you're right, it has been my life, and it's exciting to have spent my life at this.
Well, it's also interesting to me, the difference between film and performance too, because with film it can be widely distributed. You know, you can make a film and you can get it to Horse's Breath, Oregon, and they can see it there. And it lasts. The work you do is often much more ephemeral, more very exciting from that point of view. I remember I saw a short film made about Picasso painting something on a wall. He painted this on a wall, and they made a film of him making this painting. And then he destroyed the painting, so that the only way the art survived was in the film. And it was very confusing to me, in a way, because I said to myself, is that an authentic piece of art?
Wow.
Because now the real piece of art is gone. And in a sense, I think film is very different from that point of view, not just because it's moving pictures, but that it has a different thing. Yet, I'll say, you've chosen to be primarily an actor who performs, and it's like, see Michael, hold it in your memory. That's the only way you'll get it. Have you thought about recording some of this?
Well, some of my stuff is recorded, but I also think that at some point it just becomes an artistic choice, and I think that I know that's where I belong. I mean, just my instrument, my energy, my bigness belongs in a theater as opposed to, and it's taken years to sort of reconcile that, because everybody's telling you, you should be a TV star and you should be in the movies and you should. But where I'm most at home is on that stage, whether there's 4 people or 400 or 4,000. That's where I live at my, you know, utmost artistically. So I've just made that choice. But some of my stuff has been taped and some of it will live on, and certainly it's been printed. So there's that element. I mean, it's been published, and all of the scripts will ultimately be available in that way. But you're absolutely right. I mean, and now with the internet and the way things are moving so quickly, this medium is like bursting in front of us in terms of getting those stories out so quickly and to so many places, and in a way cheaper than it's been in certain respects. So that's what's, you know, just a thrill about
well, but the other thing you mentioned when you said crystal meth and hustling is how clean our image is in the more commercial media, and how worried we are about having it be clean. I mean, I think, you know, you don't want to only see gays and lesbians in depravity, as other people would call it, or whatever. You want to see, I mean, there's also, it's almost like we've got to be, you know, heroes or very funny or
politically correct.
You know, politically correct.
And that's a danger artistically, because not a lot is riveting artistically that's politically correct. It can be entertaining and it can be sweet and like a Hallmark card, but the juicy stuff is probably not politically correct. The juicy stuff has conflict and stakes are involved, and that's usually not as politically correct as some people would like. And that's, you know, my only, as an old man of the theater, my only concern is that we don't lose that edge and start eclipsing the juiciness of our lives to fit some bigger, sanguine version of gay and lesbian life. Yes, we should have shows about parenting and marriage and all those things, thousands of them. And yes, we should also not forget that there are homeless people, there are people who don't want to get married, there are people of color, there are lesbians with children, there are, you know, I mean, there's a broad spectrum that we don't want to get lost in the commercialization of gay and lesbian filmmaking.
Because it's really important. We're still oppressed. I mean, people still hate us. It's not Will and Grace. It's, do you know what I mean? And that's what's so important to not lose sight of. No matter how we're usurped by popular culture and how easily we fit in and how we're assimilated, we must keep on, you know, we must remember our roots and what really is still real and part of our lives.
But which way does that cut? Do we then have an internal struggle about, I don't want you to show that because they already hate us?
You do hear that. But you have to show it. It's not all squeaky clean. I mean, are all heterosexual movies politically correct? No, of course not. So I mean, I think that we have to, I think art is about telling the truth, ideally. And gays and lesbians, if their truth is Will and Grace, there is nothing wrong with that, and that is a truth for a lot of people. And I think that that should be applauded, and those who you know, ascribe to that lifestyle and love it and think it's funny, that's wonderful, totally. But there are other truths that deserve equal time and equal examination. And if they're not as pretty and glamorous and fluffed up, so what? We have to tell the whole truth. We can't just tell part of the truth, because part of telling the truth is dealing with things like HIV, cancer, specific illnesses, psychological or physiological, that affect the gay and lesbian community. All of these things need to, I mean, we can't be pretty all the time and glamorous and gorgeous. We also have to look at the things that we're confronted with. I mean, there's a high incidence of alcoholism and drug addiction in the gay and lesbian community. All of these things have to be, we can't shove them under the rug and say, you know, here we are, now we're living in your world. And
let's not forget the films that actually put us on the map in the first place.
That's an interesting point.
This is, you know, Todd Haynes, Tom Kearns. These guys were making films, Rose Trochet, were making films about messy lesbian and gay lives.
Right.
And doing wonderful jobs of telling these stories. And it was from their films, that time in the early 90s, that this whole media revolution began, with these movies about messy lesbian and gay lives. Beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous movies. And so, you know, it's good to see how that arc naturally travels through time, but there's always, you know, that spark of truth that you're talking about is always going to pay off into yet another part of this evolution that we're the exciting evolution of media that we're on.
I really believe that it wasn't Ellen's coming out and bad writing that canceled her show, but she started dating, and that was what was dangerous.
Sex, sexuality.
You mean to the sponsors?
Absolutely, and to the
larger
viewing,
culture.
Right, and to the people who are right.
And all of a sudden, oh, this show isn't funny anymore.
Salesman.
What happened to the writing? When I thought after she came out, it was hysterical. And very funny, and still very good writing, and oh boy, she's got a girlfriend, and came out to her parents, and do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
incrementally, it got less and less comfortable for that viewing audience and for the sponsors and for the money. And that's a shame. But good for Ellen that she didn't cave into probably what she was being told by a lot of people. And too bad for Ellen that she had to suffer the consequences of that. But she's going to be fine.
Yeah, she's going to bounce back.
And do amazing things. We don't even know, probably.
Yeah.
Next year.
The other amazing thing, I think, is what Shari was saying, is that just in terms of the artistic worth of something. I mean, this was told to me years ago, and at first it seemed so strange and foreign, but the more truthful the material is, the more universal it will be.
Absolutely.
And you know, I had a hard time with that at first, especially because I was dealing with all this gay stuff and all this sexual stuff and all this alcohol and drugs, and I was dealing with all these things, and I thought, oh, they're gonna think I'm a freak, and they're gonna think I'm just a wacko, and blah, blah. And the director, who happened to be a straight woman, kept saying, the more truthful, the more universal. And that was the biggest lesson as an artist I could have possibly learned.
Well, and there are sort of funny universal truths, and I think that also puts us in conflict sometimes about how we choose our art. I saw not too long ago Monsoon Wedding. I haven't seen very many Indian films, and I always love the ones that I see. This one I thought was particularly stunning only because every group in the audience on the way out said, that's my family. These were Italians,
Fabulous.
these were Jews, these were African Americans, these were everybody. They're all talking to each other going, that's my family, it's just like my family. And there was a play in LA several years ago called 9 Armenians, which was the whole first act was the family trying to leave the grandparents' house. And the car was in the front yard, and they kept getting in and out of the car, more food came in and out of the house, you know, that kind of thing. There is that sort of universal thing. Yet there are also stories that only we can tell, partly out of, I think, oppression. It is a particular kind of oppression, not worse than others, not easier than others, just, you know, different. It's quite unique because, for one thing, not everybody knows when you're gay. And it's a choice that other oppressed groups generally don't have to make, you know, in terms of coming out. But in a way, though, are our films more critical of our lives now because we're braver? Or were they always sort of critical? When you say cutting edge, I mean, you're the curator, what do you think?
Critical of our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe crystal meth is just saying, well, this is the way it is, but I think to some extent there's been some critique inherent in showing addiction.
Well, you know, there are movies that look at the difficult sides of what's going on in different communities and gay and lesbian people. Every year there's one, there's several actually. So it's you know, it's something that really fascinates our cultural makers who are filmmakers, and they make films about them every year. And thank goodness, because who's going to talk about this? I mean, there's a really fantastic, okay, this is an interesting example. An Italian movie, hard to find good Italian movies, this one's really good, made by a lesbian, about gay men who, it starts out as sort of like a big, fat, glossy movie about this accountant. He's a banker, and he's with his boyfriend, and he's been living with HIV for 10 years, and he falls in love with this boy, beautiful boy, knocks him off his feet, just completely is subsumed by the bliss of love, and he has unsafe sex with this guy. And you know, this is a really important movie that we need to see, and she does it with such skill and so smart in terms of just like, it's not about these guys, it's about what do you do when you're in love and you forget yourself? Right. What do you do when you're overcome with this emotion? And it's wonderful. You know, this is a movie that's critical, but at the same time, you know, it is a universal truth. I mean, a straight person can see this movie and really relate to what's going on the screen.
And ultimately, the message that one potentially gets from that movie is more valuable than 300 lists of don't do this and don't put your thing there and make sure you have this on it when you go to the party. In other words, the emotional reverberation and impact of that could do more to change someone's behavior, in my opinion, than 150 black and white lists. I just think that the visceral, as you start, that visceral punch, and humanization of it, the fact that this is human behavior, that we can't judge it, we can't sit back and say, oh, he's a bad person. He's a human being. It also allows people to forgive themselves, to start over, to make another plan. I mean, think what we've gleaned from sitting in a dark theater and watching a movie.
Well, it's true, we talk about the filmmakers a lot, but has our audience changed? I mean, there's more of us who know the other guy is gay or lesbian. That's certainly true. But has our audience changed?
I think there's more straight people that are willing to give a gay-themed movie a chance. But what I think is unfortunate kind of about what Michael and Shari were saying is that there are universalities. There's a film called A Family Affair that was a comedy that was basically about this woman that was commitment phobic, and it was a comedy, and she kept looking for Mrs. Reitowitz. And it was a very funny movie. It had a great sense of humor, and totally, it didn't matter what your sexuality is. We can all relate to having been there. It didn't get picked up. A movie that got picked up called All Over the Guy, which again, completely universal. His two straight friends, okay, we can all relate, fixed him up with another guy, and they, started dating and having a good time, and I thought, oh my God, this movie really has what it takes to make it in the straight world, and because gay people hopefully are going to see it, and it didn't. And I think the reason is because while we are able to see the universality in heterosexuality and relate to it on an emotional level and connect it to our own experiences in life, for some reason I don't think heterosexuals are able to see that. And
well, it often goes only in one direction. I mean, I was thinking, I went to a Sparks game, the women's NBA team for Los Angeles, and there were little boys there wearing jerseys with the players' names and numbers from the women's team. And it always went the other way. I mean, our role models, I don't know, I mean, I won't speak for you, but growing up in the 40s and 50s, the strong role models were all men, and I totally identified with them, not because I wanted to be a man, but because I knew I was strong and I was going to be.
And because you didn't have any other role models to identify with.
I didn't want Barbie dolls, I wanted race cars.
Right, and it's not about sexuality. It was really about what was supposed to be good. I remember there was a film about Brown versus Board of Education, and it was fictionalized. I think they did it on television to show Thurgood Marshall as one of the attorneys, and the thing I remember very well is when they were showing images of dolls to African American children and saying, is this a good doll or is this a good doll? And all the white dolls were good and all the black dolls were bad to the kids. And the notion that you want to be the next thing up, whatever you see, I think is what it reminded me of, Nance, when you said, we can identify with heterosexual films. That's all we've mostly ever seen.
Right. We had to transcribe them and put ourselves in those positions. And so it's become almost habitual that we do that. Yes. We're able to look at a heterosexual film and sort of place ourselves in there with some transforming.
That's how Showgirls becomes a gay film.
Exactly. A lot, and probably, all those Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
Lady Mae.
Calamity Jane. Exactly. Those are all gay movies because that sensibility struck us, and it was easy to make the leap. Easier to make the leap, and that's why they became. But now, think of the kids growing up. I mean, they can, go to see their brother or their sister's film at the film festival. I mean, there is exposure. I mean, my kid, at her school, she happens to go to a progressive school, but they pay as much attention to Harvey Milk as they do to Martin Luther King, as they do to, there's a new world out there.
Yeah. It's interesting, the question about the audiences that you asked, because the audiences are changing, because times are changing. The audiences at Lesbian Gay Film Festival specifically, they're now having babies, they're having families, and we're seeing movies that reflect that. And I think also just in general, they're becoming more sophisticated. It wasn't what it used to be 10, 15 years ago when we were so hungry to see just anything, and you could put just anything on the screen and people are like, yes. Now it's not that way. Now it's like, you know, that light is in the wrong place and I can see the boom. You know, the audience will be all on that. And they're becoming more sophisticated, which is good because it raises the bar for filmmakers to make, you know, films that continue to evolve artistically. It's interesting to see. You know, I think also at lesbian gay film festivals, the audiences tend to be getting older. And this is sort of an interesting thing. I think it has a lot to do with the increasing commercialization of queer film in this country that tend to be the opening, closing, centerpiece titles that don't really speak to a new generation of like, you know, adolescent queers. They actually want to see that dirty, messy riot girl short film about skateboarding. You know,
because that's what they're living.
That's their life. That's their life. And you know, the thing that well, you know, it could be said about, you know, sort of the movement in general. It's a little stuck in a certain way, in an important way. And I mean, there's not to say that we've not gained tremendously from the work and sacrifice from all those before us, but there are changes, and we need to adjust.
It's fascinating.
And really like blow out the picture a little bit, because the picture's blowing itself out. You know, there's this whole new generations that have different needs than we needed. You know.
So they're not making film, younger people?
They are making film. But they're not always getting programmed. They're not
even in the festivals.
Even in the festivals, and or they're getting programmed, and they'll be putting in the smaller theaters. And this is like a constant struggle. This is how I got into film festivals in the first place. You know, I was that young kid, 10 years ago, made a film that was crazy about cosmic demonstration of sexuality, women's sexuality, and the cosmos, and like, what was that? And
they put it so mainstream.
Well, now it is.
Wasn't
right?
that on Fox last night?
Now it's going to be a Showtime movie. But back then, you know, I was put in a rotten theater and clumped together, you know, with all the other black filmmakers, and I just felt like, well, it's great to be with my colleagues, but gosh, you guys don't really understand my movie, and you're not really programming it. So I got involved, you know, and tried to do a festival that spoke differently, that talked about sexuality and gender and race in different ways than was being talked about with the regular film festivals, the lesbian gay film festivals, and that there's going to be another change. You can smell it in the air. There's going to be another shift again, because we've hit that wall, and that's just how.
I feel like we need to reactivate,
and that's
in a way,
part of the evolution, which is exciting. I mean, what you're describing is, I mean, somebody should just be out there really looking at studying those issues and creating a space for those kinds of films.
Well, what would it look like? I mean, if you, I know sometimes it's hard to articulate, but you say that we're stuck, and something could open up. I want you to say more about that, because I think, or I'll say more about it.
I could say just a bit about it. Just being a programmer of lesbian gay film and going to different festivals with clumps of lesbian gay film festival programmers, and we're always asking ourselves, each other, is it gay enough? I'm just so sick of that question. It's not, okay, like is it gay enough? Oftentimes what that question means is, was the character gay enough? Did it have enough gay content?
Is there sex, gay sex?
Yeah, is there gay sex? Is it hot? And okay, well, it's a question to ask, but I have to come up with different answers to really meet the changing times. Well, does it speak to, our lives today? Maybe there is no gay character. Maybe he was gay and then became straight and fell in love with a woman. But does it speak to our experience? Well, yeah, it's gay enough. It's not gay enough. It speaks to a gay audience. So, it's like the new question.
I think that it's replaced the question, is it too gay? That's what's fabulous.
It's true.
We've gone from, is it too gay, to, is it gay enough?
It's a very different dynamic.
I've lived a long time.
Yeah.
It's too fabulous.
Yeah, it's so true.
But don't you think also that, on a national level, that there should be maybe a film festival that's devoted to younger people? I mean, you know, I'm just brainstorming. I
But
mean,
you know, in a way, that's another kind of clumping, as I think.
that's
you put
true,
it.
but
You know,
maybe it's a visibility rising clumping.
Gay and Lesbian Film Festival is in its own way. When I said, is it a little bit insular, that's what I meant. It's kind of, you know, you have this thing where you say, we have to showcase our own work, because by showcasing it, we encourage it. On the other hand, is Sundance full of gay films?
Oh, 10%.
Well, that's our percentage.
That is a percentage. We'll show a good 10 to 15 films out of 120 some odd films every year.
And that's important too.
Also, we have to look at the fact that the reality is that the programming is such also that it has to sell tickets, right? I mean, that's partly, you're also choosing films predicated on, to some degree, whether there's X number of tickets are going to be sold.
To festivals, not so much as like the distribution.
But still, it's an issue, right? Isn't it an issue
for bigger slots? Like, well, opening night, you know, you got to put together a program that's going to carry a 1,500 seat house. But you know, the shorts about transgendered lives, it's not going to necessarily. And the festival is built so that some nights will subsidize the smaller, more.
Okay.
You know, there's a film that we showed actually yesterday about a telenovela with gay characters in Nicaragua.
Wow.
And you know, this film just came from nowhere. And as it turns out, 70% of Nicaraguans are watching it every day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. and no one knows about it here. You know, it took a lot to bring this film and to, you know, get it subtitled, and there was a lot of expense involved.
How cool.
But you got to do that. You got to show those films and take that risk and hope that people will come. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. But it's important to have it there.
And it's important that it's in the broshure, even if they don't come.
Because it lives afterwards.
Well, no, it's true, because and you're getting some exposure just from looking at the brochure.
And we don't have our own award ceremonies.
Well, this has.
I mean, really.
Oh, yeah.
Outfest does.
Are you talking about
nationally?
Oh, nationally.
Or internationally, I don't know, you know, some kind of
That's an interesting
Oscars. Now, you know, you see, I mean, I'm going to go to the Latin Grammys, right? Because there's so much product, it makes a lot of sense.
Very interesting.
You could have, you know, your own show. What do we have instead? What we have is an anti-defamation group, GLAAD, who is watchdogging the, you know, the commercial media, more or less. And they're the only ones giving any kind of awards.
To straight actors playing gay parts.
Believe me, their committee did not attend this film about Nicaragua. I don't think there were.
I don't know. It's kind of a beef with me, to tell you the truth. Because why not? I mean, I understand you might have to reward. Well, Eric McCormack, because he'll bring in the, you know, he'll sell the dinners or whatever, but what about the work the Outfest staff is doing? What about IMRU, which is a, you know, lesbian and gay radio show? What about those, you know, the people that really are lesbian and gay, or lesbian and gay actors in a movie, or that, you know, writers, directors? I mean, we have these people within our community. You know, I mean, if Melissa Etheridge, God love her, and like power to her, and yeah, thanks, babe, but every gay organization has given her an award. And that, you know, I don't know.
I mean, say what one will, it's had a wonderful place. I could not agree with you more. It's a very corporate-driven organization. It's all about money. It's all about selling that night out. And anybody who says anything differently is deluding themselves. That's what it's about. I mean, they have their place in the world, and they should. But it's not about what you're talking about, the potential of awarding people who are in the trenches, who are making gay and lesbian art, be that film or television or theater or whatever. It's not about that. And we need something that's about that.
This movie last night, Thelma, which is a French film, it was a French-Swiss film that's about this straight man that falls in love with a transsexual man, and both guys were actually quite excellent, but the guy that was the transsexual, what a performance. I mean, really great performance. Why can't he, you know, get some spikes, you know, get some recognition and
get another job?
Yeah, you know,
Hey, even Tim Curry didn't hardly get a lot of work after.
Oh, absolutely not. It took a long time for him to recover.
Took a long time. although I wish he'd gotten something every time somebody saw that movie. Wouldn't he be so rich?
Yeah, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, what a performance. I don't know why I got off on that, but it just
Well,
reminded
it's
me
no, it's
all of a
absolutely
sudden,
apt.
You know, from Transylvania.
To Nicaragua.
Exactly.
And everything in between.
So where do you see our culture going next? I mean, I don't know whether, I don't think young people are leaving film per se, even though you can create stuff on the internet and get it out there really fast, and it's not exactly film. I don't know exactly what it is. It kind of exists in, you know, in the ether. And that probably is going to be a growing form of creating and production. I know the audiences generally out in the world are all supposedly young guys. I mean, that's who they're supposedly making movies for, not in our community, but, you know, in the world. So I know they must buy tickets. But so where would gay and lesbian filmmaking go? Where do you see it going? Where would you like it to go?
Well, you know, certainly the digital age is here, and that's going to present a whole lot of opportunities for gay and lesbian filmmakers who are having a hard time finding money to make their movies. Now they can make their movie at home on their Macintosh, you know, with Final Cut Pro, and we're seeing them, and I'm seeing them at Sundance, and they're great. Yeah, and so it also opens up opportunities for some of the younger filmmakers that are coming up. They can get their hands on a camera. It's so easy to do. I think also it's interesting. There's a return of this collective spirit amongst younger filmmakers, and when that happens, you know, that's all of these gay and lesbian film festivals came from a collective. They all came from there, and now we're starting to see them again. So I don't know what it's going to be, but there will be like an organizational outgrowth from this, whether it's going to be internet-based, whether it's going to be a geographical, like gay and lesbian film festival, another festival, another kind of media collective. But we really are on the edge of something new that's going to come from the generations coming up.
What's also interesting that we haven't touched on, and I know that we're winding up, but it's also so much, you know, the chair's political, and also we live in this political world. And what is going to happen in that political world in the next 8 years, 10 years, is going to have a high impact on what all of us is saying, but particularly gays and lesbians. Are they going to have their own reaction to what's happening in that greater picture called the world, which is politically driven, as we know? And we're going to be and we're again, our voices are going to need to be heard. We're going to those kids at their digital cameras are going to have things that are urgent and critical and impassioned to say, things that I don't know about, but they will know about at their age, and that's a thrill.
And some of it might not even have that much to do with being gay,
That's
because
right.
they're growing up everybody's everybody, and it's
That's
much more
right.
accepted. So they're just radical.
Well, and I don't know whether they'll be defining themselves only.
Right.
I mean,
That's
it's
right.
that duality
evolved.
thing, you know, and everybody's saying, don't ask me what race I am, because I'm like lots of
Right.
races.
We had
don't
to
ask me about
define
my
ourselves.
sexuality. It's, you know, it's not this and it's not, what day is it? You know, and I'll tell you what my sexuality is.
Yeah.
So I think it's been, well, and as you said, Michael, we are winding down. It's so interesting to me. At the beginning of the show, I think we all look at each other going, what are we going to talk about for an hour? But I'm very grateful to you for being my guests today, for talking about these cultural issues, Shari and Michael and Nancy, and I'm very grateful to you for joining us. And I want you to make a commitment to making some art in your life as well. I don't care what it is. Yes, you can go see other people's art. That's great. You need to support it. But make some of your own so that you can get used to it.